All right, hello, and welcome. Welcome to Crime in Court. Welcome to my YouTube channel. We talk about true crime cases, and specifically, we like to look into corruption and injustices and how we got there and what's taking place. We like to look at court documents and news articles, which are mostly substantiated for the most part. At least news articles should be, or have some kind of vetting to them. Whether they're accurate or not, I don't always know. But anyways, welcome to episode 6. This is episode 5, the altered incident report, which we're going to talk about. We're going to read through all of the different all the different police reports, every officer that was on scene that wrote a report. We're going to go through those right now. So this incident report is actually the altered report. It's called the altered report because they had a report first done January 30th, which was the day after John was I don't want to say those bad words, after he lost his life in front of another Boston police officer's front lawn. So this incident report, as you can see, is October 25th, 2022. So several months later, they updated the report, but the update that they actually input into the report happened like shortly thereafter. So it's really weird that they did this and the timing. So I don't really know. I'm not really sure or understanding it, but we're going to go through it. In fact, I'm going to shrink myself. Whoops, just a little. You don't need to see me. Let's read the report a little bit more. All right. So this incident report, the reporting officer was Sergeant Sean Good, and he does report the incident. Time of incident is 6:08 and 1:29, 2022. It says no crime involved is the original status, so that later changes. But so involved, Karen Reed. And she, they don't really say anything about her. They just give her personal details, which have been blocked out. So the location was, whoa, that's interesting. Did anybody else notice this? It says 32 Fairview Road is the location of the incident. I wonder if that's also trying to distance the Alberts from this. I'm not sure, because they seem to want to be distancing themselves. Anyways, okay, so John O'Keefe, he was taken to Good Samaritan by Canton Fire Department, and victim connected to defense murder 1. I don't know what that means. Other major injuries. So they don't even say his injuries on the police report here. So people involved: Jennifer McCabe, Carrie Roberts, Brian Higgins, that's the ATF agent, remember, who went afterwards to go do paperwork after they were all out drinking all night. Then you have Brian Albert, who's the homeowner, Nicole Albert, who is also the homeowner, Matt McCabe, who is Jen McCabe's husband, Brian Albert, I'm assuming Jr. at this point, and Caitlin Albert, who is Brian and Nicole's daughter. Jr. is also their child. Tristan Morris is Caitlin's boyfriend. And Julie Nagel, who is Brian Albert Jr.'s friend who was over that night at the Albert house. All right, so it says broken drinking glass was found. What else? 6 solo cups with blood and water. So that's the melted snow is the water. So blood from where they found it in the snow, and they collected it with red solo cups, the kinds that you bring to like a kegger. So yeah, that's how they collected evidence in this case. And they used a leaf blower too, by the way. All right, so here goes Sergeant Sean E. Good's recollection of that night, January 29th, 2022. I was patrol supervisor of the 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. shift at approximately 6:04 a.m. I received E911 call from woman reporting an unresponsive male party found in the snow at 34 Fairview Road. So he says the right address here, but in the description above, we saw that it was incorrect. All right, so at the time, the weather was very heavy snow with air temperature in the teens. The call was then transferred to Canton Fire, and I dispatched Officer Saraf and Melini to assist. I notified Lieutenant Gallagher and Detective Sergeant Lank, respectively, after hearing the seriousness of the call. All right, 2. Once on scene, the victim was already in the back of the ambulance and CPR was in progress. I was met with McCabe, Jennifer, Roberts, Carrie, and Reed, Karen, standing outside of the ambulance. All parties will be referenced by their first names going forward. Jennifer introduced herself to me and explained that they found their friend O'Keefe, John, lying unresponsive on his back in the snow. Jennifer explained that they arrived at this address because it was the last place Karen, John's girlfriend, believed he would be. Jennifer stated she had gotten a call from Karen around 4:53 a.m. inquiring about John's whereabouts. She told Karen she didn't know where he was. I asked Jennifer, why would you think that she would know? So the officer wants to know why Jennifer thinks Karen would know why John was with them. So she told Karen she didn't know where she was. I asked Jennifer why she would think that she would know. Jennifer explained that a group of them had all been at the Waterfall Grill and Bar in Canton earlier in the night. At around 12 a.m., Jennifer and her husband left the bar, heading to her brother-in-law Brian Albert's house at 34 Fairview Road. Jennifer stated Karen and John were at the bar together and around 12:14 a.m. John texted Jennifer asking where they were going. So Jennifer and her husband left the bar at 12 a.m., but then what did she say? Jennifer stated Karen and John were at the bar together, and around 12:14, John texted her. So they all said that they left at midnight, except John and Karen left at 12:14, which doesn't make sense to me, because Jennifer McCabe, and in Matt McCabe's statement, we'll learn that he was hanging around talking to the people in the bar, the band members in the bar. So I doubt that they left right at 12 when the bar closed, because why would John and Karen be hanging around till 12:15 and everybody else just left at noon, and then John's like, hey, where are we going? I would think they all left at the same time. It seems more plausible to me that they left around the same time because they were grouped together. But I don't know. It's possible that they didn't, but anyways. At around 12 a.m., Jennifer and her husband left the bar, heading to her brother-in-law, Brian Albert's house. Jennifer stated Karen and John were were at the bar around 12:14 a.m. John texted Jennifer asking where they are going. So remember that text, where to. Jennifer invited them to 34 Fairview Road. A short time later, Jennifer stated that she saw Karen and John pull up in their car and saw the passenger door open, but they never came in, and she saw the car drive off. Jennifer just thought they changed their mind and went home for the night. Number 3. I walked over to Karen and asked her who she was and how she ended up here. I also placed Karen in the back of the marked Cruiser 682 to warm up. Remember, it was cold that night. Very cold. They were saying it's in the teens. Karen was hysterical and continually yelling, "Is he dead?" I kept this is hard to read. I kept reassuring her that Canton Fire was doing everything they can to save his life. I asked how John ended up there, and she stated, "I don't know." I asked her if she drove here last night, and she stated, "I think so. Then I can't remember." At that point, I stopped asking questions because she was too upset and she was unable to keep her train of thought. Number 4, at the time, Detective Sergeant Ling arrived on scene and I briefed him on what had transpired so far. I then spoke to Carrie, who stated she was contacted by her friend Karen around 5 a.m. wondering if she knew where John was. Carrie stated she called a few hospitals and the Canton police to see if he had been transported at some point during the night. And the way that this is worded makes me think like she knew he was incapacitated on a lawn somewhere and wondering if he was transported to a hospital or a morgue. I mean, that's kind of what that appears to mean to me, but I could be wrong. Anyways, then Carrie picked up Jennifer and Karen and they began to search for John, ending up here at 34 Fairview. Number 5. Canton Fire began to transport the victim to Good Samaritan, and Karen, who was now sitting in Carrie's car, began to act out, yelling and screaming, "Is he dead?" and trying to get out of the car and walk around. At this time, I advised Carrie to take Karen home and that she was not needed anymore. Moments later, I was contacted by dispatch that Karen was making self-unaliving statements to her father over the phone. I made the decision to have Carrie bring Karen back to the scene and had her transported to the hospital via Section 12. So that must be whatever code they have, that if someone's talking about unaliving themselves, you have a duty to take them to the hospital or something, which I don't know, could have been a delay tactic if it's not true. Maybe it was made up, and I'm not saying that it was, but if this part wasn't true, that she was saying these things, if she wasn't saying these things, but they made it up for the purposes of her being taken to the hospital, it might have been like a delay tactic or something to get her out of the way. I don't know, something to not necessarily put the blame on her, but to just get her out of the way, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Anyways, Detective Sergeant Link at this time contacted the homeowners at 34 Fairview and completed a supplemental report. So this is still in the morning after 6 a.m. he was around 6 a.m. they found him. So shortly thereafter I would think he would be transported. So I guess the homeowners are being contacted, but again, they're not searching the home. They're not looking for foul play or other people that might be injured. Nothing. 7. I spoke to Officer Saraf and asked him what he observed arriving first on scene. Saraf stated he saw a woman, Karen, attempting CPR on the victim in the snow. Saraf stated Karen had blood around her mouth, which he believed was from the victim's mouth and nose area. Saraf explained seconds later, Canton Fire arrived on scene and took over medical care and moments later I arrived. All right, so that's Sergeant Good's report there. This next report is Officer Stephen Saraf. All right, he was dispatched to 34 Fairview Road for a report of a non-responsive party in the snow. When I arrived, I saw 3 people on the ground over the victim, O'Keefe, waving at me. They said he was not breathing. They were performing CPR on O'Keefe. I noted Reed, Karen, the victim's girlfriend, had blood on her face from doing mouth-to-mouth. O'Keefe was bleeding from his face. I was over the victim and felt his skin, and it was cold to the touch. I asked if he was a drug user, and they said no. He is a Boston cop. I went to get the AED from my patrol vehicle, and at the same moment, the Canton Fire Department was arriving. CFD, the Canton Fire Department, took over the care of Mr. O'Keefe. 2. Following that, Reed, Karen, kept screaming, "Is he dead? Is he dead?" She was severely distraught and was not able to tell me what had happened. I tried to console her and keep her out of the inclement weather. I had her sit in one of the cars. Sergeant Good arrived and started speaking to the parties that were there. All right, so that was Saraf's statement. Let's see. Next up is Michael Lank, and we haven't gotten to the altered part yet. I'll tell you when we get there. It's actually on this report, but it's like the last couple paragraphs, so you'll see how it like shifts time. So you'll see how they added it, and now this is being called the altered report. All right, so January 29th at 6:08 a.m., I was contacted at home by Sergeant Sean Good. Sergeant Good advised me that a male party had been found in the snow by the area of 34 Fairview Road. Sergeant Good stated that the party involved, who is a Boston police officer, was in grave condition, and Canton EMS is on the scene. The conditions at that time were blizzard-like, with heavy snow, wind, and freezing temperatures. So a lot of the police officers and some of the witnesses are going to say that the temperatures were that it was blizzard-like and there was so much snow, but in reality, I think they only got about 2 inches of snow. So there's some debate about how bad the weather was. All right. Not to say that 2 inches can't be, snow and wind and freezing temperatures, but I don't know if that's blizzard-like, but if it's coming down fast, maybe. All right, number 2. At approximately 6:24 a.m., I arrived on scene at 34 Fairview Road. Sergeant Good, Officer Saraf, and Officer Melini had already spoken to multiple witnesses, and the victim was being treated in the ambulance by Canton EMS. The ambulance left for Good Samaritan Hospital shortly after I arrived. Sergeant Good made me aware that the officers and EMTs told him that the victim was bleeding from his nose and mouth. They also stated that he appeared to have swelling above one of his eyes. 3. The first person that I spoke to was McCabe, Jennifer. She was able to provide us with a general timeline of events. So remember, this is all coming from Jen McCabe, the timeline, and a lot of this, this portion that I'm going to read here is a lot of the Commonwealth's statement of case. It makes up a lot of what their case is when it's coming from Jennifer McCabe, who, in my opinion, should have been treated more like a suspect than a witness. They all should have been treated like suspects. I mean, come on. They all should have been treated like suspects. Karen too, everyone, until they're not. All right. So Jennifer was at Waterfall Bar and Grill in Canton with her husband, Matt McCabe, Brian Albert, the brother-in-law, and Nicole Albert. And again, I think this is saying, oh yeah, Jen and Nicole are sisters, remember, and Matt's Jen's husband. Brian and Nicole are married and they own the home. Approximately 11 p.m., they were accompanied at the bar by O'Keefe, John, and his girlfriend Reed. Approximately 12 a.m., Jennifer, Matt, Brian, and Nicole left the bar and went back to the Alberts house at 34 Fairview Road. Approximately 12:14 a.m., O'Keefe texted Jennifer and asked where they were going. Jennifer responded that they were going to 34 Fairview Road. Moments later, a vehicle pulled up in front of the house, which Jennifer believed was O'Keefe and his girlfriend Reed. So what happened to the calls, the two calls that John made to Jennifer before? They didn't note that in here. Just shortly after they pull up, which Jennifer, the car that she saw, the SUV, Jennifer believed was O'Keefe and his girlfriend Reed. She observed as the vehicle just sat out in front of the house for several minutes. The vehicle was facing uphill, with the passenger side facing the house. She thought that the vehicle sat outside for at least 15 minutes. Again, her and Matt just seemed to be sitting or standing in front of the storm door of this home when it's 10 degrees outside, and just staring out the window for apparently 15 minutes, or looking out the window long enough to know that it's been 15 minutes. McCabe stated that neither party ever came to the door, and ultimately the vehicle drove away. She attempted to text O'Keefe but never got a response. Approximately 1:30 a.m., McCabe and her husband leave the house and give a ride to Julie Nagel, who lives on Highland Street in Canton. I don't know. But they also gave Sarah Levinson a ride home, who I believe was also friends with Brian Albert Jr. and Julie Nagel. All right, so approximately 4:53 a.m., McCabe was contacted by Reed and Blank, we'll call her Kay, the niece of O'Keefe. They were distraught because O'Keefe never arrived home and was not answering his phone. McCabe and Reed attempted to call some of O'Keefe's close friends, including Robert's Carrie. So I'm not sure. Anyways, approximately 5 a.m., Roberts picked up McCabe and Reed to go looking for them. So this is, according to Roberts, she picked them up at John's house to go looking for O'Keefe. Approximately 6 a.m., Roberts, McCabe, and Reed locate O'Keefe in the yard of 34 Fairview Road. He was located on the left side of the yard, about 8 feet in from the street, so like off from the curb. He was found unconscious on the ground, laying on his back. Roberts began to perform CPR. Approximately 6:04 a.m., 911 call was placed to the Canton police. And I'm gonna play that one for you guys in one of my episodes, but I'll get to it. I just haven't, and it's not the actual official 911 call. It's the 911 call. Remember that John's voicemail picks up Jen's side of the conversation to the dispatcher, so we hear how calm and cool she sounds. It's kind of eerie. So officers on scene were able to secure the scene as best they could as the weather conditions continued to be severe. So with the snow, the wind, and everything, it was difficult to maintain to secure the scene so that the unit, this next unit, the state police CPAC unit, could come and do a thorough search. So the CPAC unit was contacted at 6:38 a.m. Trooper Proctor, that's where Trooper Proctor comes in. He was notified and made aware of the situation. So, again, Trooper Proctor he has close ties to the Albert family, even though they deny it. All right, number 5, while on scene, all attempts to speak with Reed were unsuccessful. She was hysterical and difficult to control. The only statement that she was able to relay to Canton officers while on scene was that she did not remember ever being at 34 Fairview Road. Reed later made statements via telephone to her parents threatening unaliving herself. And we don't know who that's coming from. If that's coming from her parents, coming from someone that may have made that up, I don't know. We don't have corroboration on that somewhere. that I know of. I haven't gone through all the documents yet because there's so many. It might come up later. So Canton EMS ultimately responded back to the scene, and Reed was taken to the hospital under Section 12 order. All right, so next, I went to 34 Fairview Road and spoke with the homeowners, Brian and Albert Nicole. So he spoke to both of them at the same time. It doesn't say he searched the residence. It just says he went into the home and spoke with them. Okay, but that's it. They probably didn't go farther than like the living room or kitchen or something. So both parties from this point forward will be referred to by their first names. Brian stated that they had seen the victim at Waterfall Bar and Grill and had spoken to him. He stated that he did not know the party well, but knew that he was a friend of McCabe, the sister-in-law. Brian and Nicole recalled that the victim had been welcomed to their home, but he never arrived. When asked about O'Keefe's demeanor or if O'Keefe had any altercations with anyone earlier at the bar, Brian said that he seemed to be fine at the bar and there were no issues whatsoever. So everyone's saying that they were in good spirits, everything was fine at the bar, and in fact, Jen and John were being affectionate with one another and looked like they were having a good time from what was captured on surveillance video. So no one says otherwise. They all are in agreement with that. And they also agreed that none of them seemed intoxicated. So there's that. Matthew also reiterated what Brian said. O'Keefe seemed to be fine. Oh, at the bar, nobody in the establishment or group. Did I just read that part? O'Keefe seemed to be fine at the bar and that there was really nobody else in the establishment other than their group. Next, I asked Brian and Nicole who else was at the house that night. Again, it seems like he's interviewing them together, which they shouldn't. He should be separating them. Aside from the names already mentioned, the following people were present at some point during the time in question. Brian Albert Jr., Brian and Nicole's son, Caitlin Albert, which is their daughter, Julie Nagel, which is Brian Jr.'s friend, and Brian Higgins. They don't mention Sarah Levinson here. Brian Higgins, who is a friend of Brian Albert Sr. They advised me that their daughter Caitlin left the house around 12:15 when she was picked up by her boyfriend Tristan Morris. So why would the parents be allowing? I don't know how old Caitlin is. I don't know if she's an adult or if she's still a minor or not. But it just seems odd to me that her boyfriend will come pick her up at 12:15. If they're kids, why would the parents allow that? I don't know. Anyways, number 7. While on scene, Lieutenant Gallagher, Sergeant Good, and I attempted to retrieve as much evidence as possible given the weather conditions. Lieutenant Gallagher was able to use a leaf blower to blow away the top layers of snow. Yep, it's in the report. It happened. We were able to observe a broken drinking glass and multiple patches of red, which appeared to be frozen blood droplets. 6 samples of this substance was retrieved by using red solo plastic cups. The broken glass was retrieved and bagged into evidence. Both items were returned to the Canton police station and logged into evidence. At approximately 9 a.m., I was contacted at the police station. So he went back to the police station after they did this initial search and found the broken cocktail glass and pieces of, drops of blood. So it was cocktail glass and drops of blood. And no pieces of taillight in the very first search. And then he goes back to the Canton police station and gets a call from Jen McCabe. She asked if it's possible to come back to 34 Fairview Road and speak with her. Lieutenant Gallagher and I both left immediately and arrived at 34 Fairview within a few moments. McCabe told us that she recalled something and she was not sure if we were aware of. She said that when Reed was driving around with her and Roberts looking for the victim, she said something to the effect of, "I hope I didn't hit him." McCabe told us that she made these statements again at the scene when the victim was discovered. She thought that Reed may have made the statements in front of police officers, but she wasn't sure. So she just wanted to put it out there and make sure that the police knew that she said that. And this is something that she happened to remember later, after she's had all this time to talk to the Alberts, her husband, and get their story straight if they were involved. It just doesn't make sense to me. So 9. This is the added section. This is the altered part of the report. These couple paragraphs right here, starting with number 9. Just 9. That's it, because the next one is in the other report, but it's out of order. They changed the order for some reason. But this number 9 is the altered report. But remember, we didn't get it until October 25th. But he's referencing February 4th, 2022. I was working the 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. shift as the detective sergeant. At approximately 8:50 a.m., I was contacted by Lieutenant Gallagher, who advised me that Chief Berkowitz, the chief of police of the Canton Police, was at 34 Fairview Road and had possibly discovered more evidence. So he was just driving along in his car, Chief Berkowitz, and he saw a piece of red taillight shining there out of the corner of his eye, and he found it on what is at least the third search, because after the first search with the leaf blowers and all that, then we got the state police that were out, or was it the first? Yeah. Then we got the state police who came out there, and this was the time frame in between the Karen's car being towed and Michael Proctor and Buchanan had access to her car. Then we find taillight pieces on the second search, at least second search, and there may have been even more. And now we're back to the scene days later, and we find more taillight pieces. Just driving along, mind you. All right, so Detective Taylor and I drove to the scene at 34 Fairview Road and met with Chief Berkowitz. He directed our attention to the area where O'Keefe had been discovered. I was able to observe a red broken piece of hard plastic which appeared to have been broken off of a motor vehicle light fixture. The temperature overnight had reached 45 degrees with heavy rains which melted much of the snow from the storm on Saturday. This revealed much of the area that had originally been covered in deep snow. I photographed photographed the broken plastic as it was in the snow and will attach to this report. State Police CPAC unit was notified and responded to the scene. So they come back to the scene, the state police. Trooper Buchanan arrived and secured the item into evidence. So they handed the item over, I'm assuming, to the state police, which is Proctor and Buchanan, the crooked ones that we are that it is alleged to have believed they are crooked. Just saying. I'm not saying that, but it's alleged. All right, so this is the last report from Stephen Melini, Officer Melini. On Wednesday, January 29th, 2022, Officer Melini was assigned to patrol the east sector for the 11:45 to 7:45 a.m. patrol shift. At approximately 6:05 a.m., Officer Saraf and I were dispatched to 34 Fairview Road for a report of an unresponsive party. 2. Upon my arrival, Canton FD Fire Department was arriving on scene. Officer Saraf had already been on scene. When I exited my cruiser, I observed a female party attempting CPR on the victim in the snow. As I approached the victim, Canton FD began CPR. I then assisted Canton FD with lifting the victim onto a stretcher. The victim was then taken by stretcher to the ambulance. 3. At this time, Officer Saraf asked me to assist in getting witnesses' information. I then spoke with McCabe Jennifer. I asked McCabe who the victim was, and she identified the victim as O'Keefe, John. McCabe then explained to me that a group of people had gone out to Waterfall Grill and Bar in Canton Center early in the night. Jennifer stated that she and her husband left the bar at approximately 12 a.m. and went to her brother-in-law's house at 34 Fairview Road. McCabe then told me that O'Keefe and his girlfriend Reed, Karen, were invited to 34 Fairview Road but never arrived. I asked McCabe if she possibly knew how long the victim had been where he was found, and she told me he was dropped off by, she told me that he was dropped off by Reed sometime between 12 a.m. and 1 a.m., which that is believed to have been true. I believe it was like 12:40 something by the time Karen was home and leaving the message to John. So she was already out of there by like 12:30, I think. So McCabe then told me that she was called by Reed at approximately 5 a.m. wondering if she knew where John was. At that time, Sergeant Good arrived on scene and the victim was transported to Good Samaritan shortly after. Number 4, while talking to McCabe, Reed was hysterical and distraught and repeatedly screamed, "Is he dead?" and "That's my boyfriend." Sergeant Good then advised Roberts Carey to take Reed home. After Reed and Roberts left, Canton Control advised officers that Reed was making self-unaliving statements to her father. Roberts then brought Reed back to the scene where Sergeant Good asked me to fill out a Section 12 paperwork, and she was transported to Good Samaritan Hospital. I stayed on scene, and Assistant Sergeant Good, Detective Sergeant Link, and Lieutenant Gallagher. And those, my friends, are the police reports from the Canton police officers who arrived on scene. And then in the next episode, we're going to hear or read through all of the different witness statements and see whose statements really... we're going to look through the statements and see if where there are inconsistencies and things where, that might just be strange and stick out. So we're going to go through those next time. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you will join me for the next time. Please like, subscribe, comment, and let me know what you think of this case. What is it about this case that's interesting to you? All right. Talk to you later. Bye.